everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and today we are talking about a book that has been on my radar and my bookshelf for a long time, and I finally got around to reading it, and I'm so glad that I did. That is Lakesedge by Lyndall Clipstone. This book, I loved the vibe of this book. It reminded me a lot of Winter Song by S.J. Jones that I read a couple of years ago. I don't think I did a review on that book. I think it was pre-booktube. But I loved everything about that book. So just very quickly, it was like kind of like Mozart meets Goblin Market, like the poem by Christina Rossetti. And so basically it was this girl who was like to be the bride of the Goblin King, so she could like her energy was being like taken to kind of keep everything alive and keep him alive and all this stuff. And it was a very dark story, but I really loved the world that it was created, the atmosphere, and like the feelings that I was getting from reading that book. And I had similar feelings from Lakesedge. It was a very sweet story about the love between a girl and her brother, and also like a blooming romance. But it was also a very dark story, and it had a lot of dark elements to it that I really enjoyed. So let's go ahead and do just a very quick spoiler-free summary, and then I'll get into spoilers, more in-depth plot review, and then my thoughts on the book. So this is the story of Violeta and her brother Arien. They are orphans that have been adopted, and they are approached by this monster from the estate Lakesedge, Rowan, who basically says like, come live at the estate with me, we can help each other out. And they are working to kind of eliminate this corruption that has started to infect the lake, the estate, and then the world around them. So that's kind of it without giving too much away, and I think I probably went into a little more detail than I should have. But let's go ahead and get into some spoilers, plot details, my thoughts on the book. So if you are planning to read this and don't want to know what happens, or you just want to avoid spoilers of any book ever, feel free to skip to the end of the video. So when I was reading this book, early on, I got really excited about, as I said, the similarities to Winter Song, so much so that I ended up ordering the sequel pretty early on into reading the book. So I do have the sequel off to the side ready to start this week. It may not seem like it, but I'm actually making progress in some of the books that I have. Okay, so let's dig into the plot of this book and kind of share why I was so into it early on. So as I said, Violeta and Arien are kind of the two main characters in this story. They are orphans who were adopted by this very religious woman, and I would say they have it's a fairly abusive relationship. I don't know why I had to like think about that, because it's pretty obvious, but they have a lot of affection toward her, and I guess I got the impression that she was very affectionate as a mother when they were younger, but Arien, when he sleeps, he has these like shadows that kind of shoot out of his fingers, and he kind of loses control of this magic that he seemingly has while he's asleep when he has nightmares. And so their mother, being super religious, knows or thinks that this is some power belonging to the Lord under the Lord of the Dead, and she thinks that he's cursed and kind of punishes him whenever he releases this magic, which he, as far as we know, can't control. So it's the time of year where they have to kind of pay this tithe to the Lord of the Manor, which is this man named Rowan, who everyone refers to as a monster because his entire family has died. His brother, his mom, his dad, they're all dead, and everyone believes that he killed them. So they are paying this tithe that they owe him, but they're also like kind of terrified about it. And so they're all, and this is all part of like some big festival. So there is this like ceremony aspect to it where they are praying or singing these songs, and Arien kind of lets go of some of his magic a little bit, and there are like black marks on his fingers. And Rowan notices this, And so he comes to their house a little bit later and basically says, like, I want to take Arien with me. I feel like I can teach him a lot. I'll give him a place to stay, food, I'll take care of him. Their mother's like, fine, whatever. He's, kind of cursed. And Violeta's like, I'm not letting you take him without taking me too. He can't go by himself. We can't be separated. So eventually Rowan agrees, fine, you can come with us. And she does try to escape a couple of times, which, I mean, that's to be expected. That was a pretty, predictable part of the story. They get themselves in a dangerous situation. He comes to save the day. They end up going to the manor, and it's very typical, old, dirty, dusty. A lot of the rooms are closed off. There's not a lot of people there. Just very typical fantasy kind of creepy estate. So once at Lakesedge, they kind of get the full picture. So there's this corruption that has taken over the lake. The lake's black. It's this gross, oily, muddy looking water. The shores are black, and the corruption is spreading. They have an alchemist named Clover who has tried to stop it, but her magic alone is not enough to stop this corruption from spreading. And Rowan thinks that Arien's magic might be enough to stop the corruption from spreading. To kind of just keep everything status quo, Rowan has been using his blood to kind of stave off the corruption. But in doing so, more and more of him is becoming poisoned, and so he kind of loses control a little bit and becomes this monster that people assume he is. Every time he has to do that. So he acknowledges that he's running out of time, as does everybody else, and they are working to try to stop this corruption from spreading. So Rowan and Violeta start to grow quite close, and they realize that they have something pretty significant in common, and that is that they both gave up something to the Lord Under to either save their life or the life of somebody that they care about. So when Violeta and Arien were very small, their family, I think, was killed. And so they were walking through the woods. Arien started to get very cold. It was very cold, very dark. They were lost. They didn't have anything with them or any sense of direction. So Arien was starting to die, and the Lord Under came for him, and Violeta traded her magic for him to be able to live. And so she is now just kind of remembering this, having not really thought about it much in the past. And Rowan confesses that at one point he was drowning in the lake, the Lord Under came for him, and he said he would give him anything, which ended up being the lives of his entire family, and that caused the spread of this corruption. So in their search to kind of figure out how they can stop this, with attempting to use Clover's magic and Arien's magic together, Violeta ends up speaking with the Lord Under, and she finds out that he also wants this corruption to stop, because his magic is what started it, but it has now grown out of his control, and there's not a lot he can do by himself to stop it from taking over. So at this point, Rowan has kind of given up everything that he can, so Violeta's more concerned about him turning into something that's not human than the corruption spreading. So she makes another deal with the Lord Under after it becomes apparent that there's not really a lot that they can do to stop it. She trades her afterlife experience for the ability to access her magic and stop the corruption from spreading. So she says that she gives up, first of all, the memories of her parents. So she can no longer remember what they looked like, who they were. She has no memories of her previous family. In addition, she will not be reunited with them in death. She'll be just by herself. So that's what she traded to be able to access her magic. So I think they had to wait for the full moon or the next cycle, and they attempt to use now her full magic to stop this corruption. She realizes that she needs to fix the corruption, not from the top. She needs to go down where the Lord Under is and fix it from there. So he guides her through. he's like a little obsessed with her. I feel like the word love triangle isn't the correct way to describe what's going on in this book, because Violeta and Rowan are very much interested in each other, and when she's in the land of the dead, I guess, all she wants is to get back to him. So there's not really any sort of like romantic interest in the Lord Under. She feels very kindly toward him because he did help her as a child, and she remembers him being very kind. But he's like really interested in her. But I don't think she reciprocates. So throughout the story, it's very clear that the Lord Under is like, he uses words to manipulate people. So for example, when Rowan said he would give up anything, he didn't mean his family, but of course that's what the Lord Under took. And there were a couple of other things where he mentions like, oh, you didn't ask for that specifically. I could have told you, but that's not what you said. So he very clearly is manipulative. So he does make a bargain with Violeta that if you can heal the corruption, I'll let you go home. Cause like you're gonna come back eventually, right? When you're dead. So she is able to heal it. She goes back. Everyone's thrilled to see her alive. And then she realizes that the way that she healed the corruption was by taking like all of the poison inside of her, and it is very quickly killing her. So she finds herself back with the Lord Under and is like, what the heck? That wasn't supposed to happen. And he says like, no, I let you go home to say goodbye. Now you're mine. So that's kind of where the book ends. She has a sigil drawn on her wrist from some of the spells that they were doing to heal the corruption. Rowan has an identical one, so she's still able to feel like a connection to him. They are now in very different places. So I think that's where the sequel picks up, if I am correct from the little synopsis that I read on the back. And I do have the sequel here called Forestfall, so I'm super excited to find out what else happens with these characters. As I said, I just really liked the vibe of this book, like the setting of the dark estate, the Lord Under's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Again, it's not a love triangle, but like this, like the complications that he kept throwing in. It was kind of like the Labyrinth. That's like a weird way to compare it, but like that's kind of how it felt. So I am excited to read the next book. I do feel, and I don't know if it's just because it took me a while to get through this book because I was busy, or if it was the actual story itself, I did start to lose interest in the plot a little bit toward the end. But then it did pick back up once they started that like final ritual to clear the corruption. So there was a little bit of a lull for me in the middle, but again, I don't know if that was just situational, that I was doing a lot and not reading a ton, or if it just kind of slowed down and it wasn't working as well as the rest of the book had. So excited to start book 2. Hopefully I'll have a review of that for you soon. If you've read either of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts if you agree or disagree with my thoughts. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!